Animating the 3DS Max Biped, or something. Alright, huge emphasis on the on something because I tried doing a scripted tutorial on this. I tried to record it a couple of times. It didn't quite pan out the way I wanted it to, so I figured the best thing to do would be to do a live demo, or, well, not live, I'm recording it obviously, and just talk and explain what I'm doing as I do it. So, again, this tutorial isn't really meant for beginners. It's I'm doing it by special request, so it's not really for beginners to 3ds Max so much as for people who are already familiar with the program and just want to get into the biped animation system a little bit. So let's take a look at some of the basics on how to do that. And if you're not aware, Alt W is what's making this windows bigger and smaller. I like to work on big perspective view. So anyway, on the Create tab of I forget what it's called, this big right bar here, the toolbar. On the little cog area, there's biped. You can click and drag that out, so you can have one there. And I like to center it. 0 and 0. So there's our biped. Yay! If you want to customize this thing, what you do is you go to the, what is this called? The motion. You go to the motion tab on the right toolbar and you click figure mode. Figure mode is, why did you? Okay, so figure mode is where you make all your edits to your biped. All any structural changes, any positional changes. Probably the reason it moved over there is because I clicked on, like I repositioned it without opening figure mode. So now I'll recenter it. And there, now he's centered. Down here under structure, the structure rollout, you can pull up different kinds. You have the skeleton, you have male, you have female, and then you have classic. Personally, I like to use classic. I think most people like to use classic. One thing to remember about the 3ds Max Biped is that I think it's meant to be used mostly with motion capture data, not so much with direct animation, which, like, you can animate with it, but it's not great, and we'll get into that in a bit. But first, let's take a look at how to customize it. So first things first, usually when you get a rig back from the riggers, it's not going to look like this. It's going to have a little bit more going on. So how do we set that up just for the sake of authenticity? The first thing to do is you hold down Alt, right click, and select local, and you'll see that the little gizmo over here changes orientation, and that's because local means it's now aligned to that object. So if I rotate that, the gizmo follows. You can also change it up here in this little menu, but I prefer doing Alt right click because it's quicker, it's more direct. So let's fold that out into like an A pose. Let's select that spine and make it 3 spines joints. Let's come down to the hand, and I'm sorry about that phone ring. Let me turn that off. There we go. Let's do 3 fingers and 3 finger links. And so one thing that's useful about the changing the orientation of it is that, one, let's say that I want to slide this finger over to so it's closer to the edge, right? If I just take that and move it, you see that it becomes weirdly offset to the hand. But if I set the orientation to local, then I can literally just slide it because it's already aligned. Another thing is, if you double click on a bone, the entire hierarchy will be selected. So if we go to the scale mode and then local, we can widen that out and make it like match better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that a little bit less, select those, make them a little bit wider as well. So there's going to be one of those rigs where the index finger is unique, but then the other 3 fingers are mapped to the same bone chain. So let's select that, make them a little bit bigger, I guess, for visualization purposes, and rotate them into something like that. And then let's come down to the foot. And I don't know why the biped starts out with 3 toe lengths. It seems like a waste. And then just make that bigger. Not a waste, but most rigs, if they have shoes, they're not going to have multiple like toe links. It's bizarre that the hand only starts out with two nubs, and then the toes are like super detailed for no reason. So the way we get this information to the other side is to select the entire arm, go to the copy paste rollout, make a new collection with this little plus button, copy that with this little person button, and then two buttons next to it. You go paste opposite, and then we can do the same thing with the leg, paste opposite. And so this is looking more like what it'll be like when you get something from a rigger and they tell you to animate something. One thing I like to do is to select this pelvis joint. I don't know what to call it, bone, I guess. You'll notice that I can't really move it. I think I can rotate it. Yeah, I can rotate it, and whatever. I, I it's not super important. So what I like to do is to just right-click, go to Object Properties, freeze it, and make it see-through. The reason for that is because okay, this is super important, and I almost forgot to do it. You want to turn off figure mode before you start doing any kind of posing. Figure mode is where you edit the basic structure of your skeleton. If you move and edit things during, like while figure mode is on, you're going to be in trouble because it's going to be hard getting everything back to zero. So turn that off. This core thing right here, the bib01, is that's how you control basically the biped center of gravity. This is probably the first thing you're going to be animating, followed by the legs and feet, followed by the spine and the arms and the head. And that's about it in terms of editing the biped and setting it up. And this is now ready for animation in theory. Something's gonna break, I promise. This is the reason I had to switch to just recording a live demonstration, because something is gonna break at some point, and I guess we're gonna troubleshoot it in real time. One quick way to avoid epic headaches down the line is okay, so first let's say that we have a random pose and you're like, oh no, something's wrong, things are way too wacky, I need to go back to zero. If you click the figure button, everything snaps back, and if you click out of it again, you basically have your biped set back to zero. I think the only time that doesn't happen is if, let's see, if there's like a key. Yeah. So how do we fix that? Let's get rid of that. Set it back to zero. One thing you can do is if you double click the bib01 and then you hold down Alt and right click and go set as skin pose. It's going to ask you if you really want to do it. You say yes. And let's say again that I have a weird pose going on because I'm in the middle of an animation. It's moving. And then this arm is over here. And let's say that I want to reset the spine, but not the arm or the leg. Well, if you select all the spine joints, and then you go to Alt, right click, assume skin pose, the spine will snap right back to zero and everything else will be left behind. And this will also create a new key if you have auto key turned on. So that's if you need to reset any part of your body, you can just do that, right click, assume skin pose. I think it's a little bit finicky with the limbs, right click, assume skin pose. Yep. Another way to do it is try not to rely on turning figure mode on and off. That's more of a fail safe, more of an emergency. But something else that you can do is if you right click, or not right click, if you double click the bib01 there, over in the copy paste rollout, you can make a new collection and copy the whole thing. And then, actually, I'm not sure if copying the whole thing is sound. We will check. If you double click the arms, I believe, wait, I didn't do the thing. Copy paste, pose. Okay, so that copies the entire pose, so that's not great. And so what you can do is if you just double click the shoulder, you can make a new thing over here, and so now you do have a situation where it's like, oh, I have a pose and things are weird. I need to get this arm back to normal without affecting the rest of the pose. Now you can just go to copy paste and then paste that arm, and then that arm has been reset. And if you select everything, you can go into this little drop down menu, select your thing, and then paste it, then it goes back to 0. And you can also name these, by the way, like reset pose. And so when you open that, the rollout, there it is, reset pose. So I think we're ready to do some animation with this thing. The first thing you're going to want to do is open up your key info rollout. This is where I think you're going to be spending the most amount of time. And select the feet. And where did it go? There it is. And set a couple of sliding keys. Sliding keys basically make it so that if you select BIP01 and you drag the model around, the feet will stay exactly where you want them to be, or exactly where you set the key at. There is also free key, and that is like it sets a key for the foot and where the foot is relative to the rest of the body. But if you move the BIP01, this goes with it. So in any case, let's do a quick pose. Start with setting sliding keys on both of those. Select that, move it a little bit down so the knees are slightly bent. Set a key there. Let's drag these down, rotate them. Oh, turn on auto key. That'll help. And that didn't help. And this is why I don't like 3ds Max. The Biped. Well, here's a good opportunity to showcase another feature on this that's neat. If you right-click, I think, yeah, if you have a foot selected and then you right-click, there's going to be a little thing here that says Select Pivot. If you click that, you'll see this little blue dots appeared at various points around, and I think, yeah, if you go into wireframe mode, which you can access by pressing F3, you can see all the dots. If you click one of them, and then right-click again, that has now become where the foot rotates from. And that's what I wanted. To rotate so that the angle of the leg matches the foot better, select the shin and then rotate it accordingly. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the pivot for that as well. Move it out. Rotate it out slightly, make the shin match. Gonna tweak the position of the pelvis. And ooh, a little too much rotation there. And if you select the whole thing and you rotate or do anything, like the hierarchy will follow, so that's really useful. Most 3D programs do that by default. So that's great. Select the hand, move it into place. I'm not really going to worry about the finger movements for this since it's pretty straightforward. Might do something at the end with it. If you select the forearm and then just rotate anywhere in the gizmo, you'll get this nice, like, oh, you can tweak things. Select the shoulder. Whenever you're animating characters, don't forget to like move the shoulders. It's the thing that will make things flexible. So there we have a pose, right? And it's not a great pose, but whatever. We're not really worried about like quality right now. We are learning fundamentals. Let's say that our next pose is winding back like this, And you need to rotate that way so that you're... Let's angle you a little bit that way. And here's the thing that is legitimately neat about the 3ds Max Biped is that because of how it's set up, it's primed to like roll the feet properly. So because I selected that pivot back there, this happens. And let's actually move this back so that I can get something like that. And select the entire spine, bend it forward a bit. Let's rotate this down. Whoa, 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 whoa. Chill. Select the upper arm and rotate that instead. Whenever you're moving things in the biped, by the way, you want this to be set to world. The other ones work, but like if I set it to local, for instance, I think it like wigs out. Yep. So it's better if you move things in local space. When you're rotating, I prefer to use local or gimbal. Local is usually good enough. Okay, so that's our second pose, and I think everything is key, right? Yep. And let's go to a third pose. And let's, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this key, the first key, then hold shift and drag over to the third key so that the key has basically been copied over. Gonna move this back over here. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to rotate it slightly. And I'm going to right click, select pivot. And then select this front one here. And what that's going to do is if I rotate this on the z-axis, now the foot is bending forward. So that's the one thing about the biped that's actually really nice. Is that it just has that built in. You don't have to set it up yourself. Let's rotate it that way. Trying to get something like a very specific. Yes. Let's make it so that you're more straight. Let's take the hand, bring it back here. Oh, just the hand, not the fingers. Thank you. Like that. Rotate the shoulder down a little. Let's bring this hand forward. And rotate the shoulder appropriately. And then finally the head. And for this, I will go in and select all these finger joints and rotate those in to make a feast. That was not what I wanted. Select those, stretch them out in an accusatory pointing manner. Right? And then we can also maybe rotate this that way. And this is mostly what this first chunk of the process is. It's just finding good poses. Oh, I don't like the way that looks. So right click, select pivot, select that back one, rotate it so that it's a more facing forward. So what we're looking at now is this animation where the character... Okay. I'm sorry. I know I said I wasn't going to do anything with the fingers, but I like quality. You're here to learn. This is how you learn. So let's relax that. Select the whole thing. Thank you. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually go ahead and hold Control, drag on those fingers. We're gonna go over here to copy paste. I'm gonna copy that. Select everything. Thank you. And we're gonna select the other fingers and paste opposite. So now we have a nice relaxed pose. And then the next one, I'm going to select just that first one, move it or rotate it back like so. Then select the next two and then curl those in. I'm going to do the same thing for that, but less dramatically. There we go. And I think I'm going to go ahead and copy those over again. There we go. So now we have a winding back pose, at the beginning pose, winding back pose, and then pointing j'accuse kind of pose. And you'll notice that I didn't set these at like various different times. I just kind of, right now I'm just worried about the posing, not the timing. Now that we have this part set up, we can worry about the timing. So if you select everything, you can start dragging things around. Like, let's say the first one is going to take... I'm animating at 24 frames per second, by the way. That you should probably already realize that 24 frames per second means that there's 24 individual images in a full second. So a full second is about yay much in the timeline. So this animation will, let's say that it takes about 12 seconds. Let's see, 1, 2. No. Let's say that it takes about like 18 frames to wind back. And then, oops. So like that. And then it takes like maybe 5 or 6 frames to snap forward. Okay. So you're going to notice that the thing is moving, but it's not very good. So how do we fix that? Well, first of all, I'm actually going to give this a little bit more space. At this frame, we don't want it to hit that value and then immediately go back into the other one. We want it to like hold there for just long enough that the eye will register the pose and see it as like as a clear pantomime. And one relatively reliable way to do this is if you select that frame, and then once again you shift, click, and drag it a couple of frames forward. Now you have like a bit of a whatchamacallit, a hold, a moving hold. So if I play that, that's actually way too slow on the wind up. So let's put this at like frame 9. Move that back. Okay, so the hold that is too slow. Let's change the timeline to be 24. Okay, so there's a couple of things missing here. I'm gonna move this up to like 35 actually. One, immediately as soon as the slider starts moving, it's already moving back into space. We don't quite want that. Usually I'm gonna go over to frame 4 and I'm gonna copy that frame over, and what I'm gonna do instead is I'm going to take this, I'm going to move it forward a little bit, and I'm going to very subtly relax everything else about that. So what's going to happen is there's going to be a little bit of why is the foot sliding all weird? What the heck? Was that change and I wasn't informed? Nope, it's not the sliding key. Well, here's another example of a thing breaking. Alright, so one quick way to resolve this issue is if you go one frame before that and then just like copy the key. So now, what? Oh, okay, I see what's happening. The reason this is happening is literally because I'm stretching the biped. Like when this reaches, when this becomes straight, the foot will start getting moved. So I'm gonna lower this a little bit and maybe rotate it. No, it's still doing it. And I have no idea why. Okay, well, okay, so now it worked this time because the leg wasn't straight. So if you just copy the frame like one frame before it, you basically clamp the curve, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. Let's do the same thing for this one. Yep. And let's have you reach. Let's copy that. Right, move it forward a little bit. We're gonna select the pivot, go over to the ankle, rotate that like that a little bit. And what that's gonna do, it's gonna change the timing. And I'm gonna move that one frame forward. And you can see how that looks a lot more natural. And I'm gonna copy that over here as well. And here. So we're gonna take a look at what's happening under the hood in a minute. And why I'm setting up all these keys the way I'm setting them up. Whoa, okay. Let's just copy that. Okay, so that's staying. And then that one. Why are you being weird? Oh, I see why you're being weird. So again, once the leg straightens out, the foot gets dragged with the rest of the leg. So the fact that the pelvis is moving all the way that far is a problem. I will resolve that in a minute. But first, let's take a look at this. Copy that frame. And then one more. Okay. So there I'm satisfied with what the feet are doing. I may select this and let me check something real quick. No, don't save. Do save on your end. For God's sake, do not forget to save. The fact that I haven't saved is terrible. Please save when you're... Oh, stop. Get out of there. Oh. Okay. Alright. Alright, 3ds Max. Jeez. I will be back in a moment. Okay, I'm back. I had to fix it. So I opened the graph editor and you can see the curves over here. If you're familiar from the previous video, this is just like values changing over time, and you will notice the first thing is that these things do not have handles because 3ds, well, not 3ds Max, the biped is special. and it has to work its own way. So if you want to control the curvature of these things, and specifically there's one thing that I wanted to do here, which was to select this, and no, not that. What the heck? Where's the scale rotation positions? Oh no, are they just rotations? They are just rotations. Well, crappity. Okay. Introducing my first major grief with 3ds Max. At least with the biped system. Let's take that and give it a... You can't control the... Sorry, I'm distracted because I really wanted to fix that post to make it not terrible. Alright. So what we're looking at here in the graph editor is rotation information. So if I grab that and like move it around, that changes the rotation of it. But I don't have access to the position ones. So if I wanted to change the position of that, I have to do it manually on the screen, because the way that these things are being keyed has nothing to do with the actual position of the foot and everything to do with the rotation values of the thigh and the shin, which drives me crazy. And again, no other program, no other animation system does it like this. But that's now we have an almost finished pass of the feet. I do want to, let's see, at this point you should still be dragging behind like this. We're gonna rotate you like that, and we're gonna rotate you. Whoop, nope, select pivot. Yep. Yeah, so getting that foot to stay behind like that, and then getting dragged all the way to the end. Okay, so now we have a functional lower body. I'm gonna move this out of the way for a sec. And everything else is actually not looking too bad on its own. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't really feel the need to make any particularly hardcore changes to the upper body, with the exception of... Stop playing, thank you. Oh, this is... Okay. Alright, we do need to fix something. Let's take that, and... You really need to go, like, over to this side. Alright. Okay, so I added one more key just to make sure that the arm was rotating in front of the body and not in fourth dimensional space behind it. So, yeah. Now the problem that I was gonna talk about is how he just completely stops moving. Zip. And you don't want that. Usually you want to have like an extra pose where maybe 4 frames in. It's slightly and overcompensate a little bit. Right? So again, there's going to be an issue with the feet. Because here's a fun little tip. Over on the key info, if you turn on trajectories, you can see, you can visualize what the object that you have selected is doing, which is great because that's how you really make sure that you have nice arcs working across your entire animation. So the problem area here is right here when the leg straightens out, the foot is getting dragged. So that's why it looks like, oh no, it's sliding slightly. So how do we fix that? Well, normally, in a sensible 3D program, you would be able to select like the object and then just go into your graph editor and start like messing with values. Now, I don't think I can do that here because, yep, that's just rotation. Alright, so the graph editor is completely useless to us while working with the 3ds Max Biped, unfortunately. The way that the program wants you to handle this is if you look at the key info rollout over here, you can see this little graph. The red represents a key, not your key, just a key. And the line represents the interpolation that's coming in and out of that key. So if you change attention, continuity, and bias, you can change what that curve looks like. And you are the one who has to basically guess on what exactly you need that curve to look like. And unfortunately, you can't even edit keys that are behind you. Well, no, you probably can. You probably can, but I don't know how. So let's instead... Oh, here's another weird thing about 3ds Max is that the horizontal and vertical motions are separate channels. I don't know why that is. So let's spread those out as well. And nope. I think what I ultimately need to do is to just... And this is completely fine to do, by the way. It's just manually... manually go in and clean up the poses. Let's copy that. And let's copy that across these three. And you can see that that's having trouble as well back there. Oh, and something you're gonna have to do every so often is if this is happening and you want to set a specific key with that leg, you might have to copy it over and over because it's only gonna be able to correctly copy the key based on the distance to the bib 01. So you can see that me copying that key has like slight, it makes very slight tweaks, and that's because it's based on its position relative to where the bib is. It's very annoying. Let's take that and copy that again. Actually, let's copy that again. So let's preview that. The stopping is still a little bit too jabby. Like it's a little too and then completely stops moving. So what I might do is let's see, where's the last key for that? I'm gonna go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's like 7 frames, and ever so slightly relax the pose back in. Very slightly. Maybe that's too much. That's still too much. It's not quite doing what I would like it to do, which is just sort of settle a little bit. Okay, what's happening there? Let's copy that and move it back and up. Not that much up. Alright, that's not perfect, but it's working. So that's what animating with a 3ds Max Biped looks like. You don't really have a whole lot of reliable access to the graph editor, which is unfortunate. But the way you get around that is by figuring out your main key poses and then timing them out and then basically manually creating enough breakdowns and in-betweens. And if you don't know what that is, I will have another video explaining all the basics of animation to get like the right timing and the right performance for your character. So if you can imagine, I can basically save this out, and if you have a rig that matches the structure in a video game, you can just like copy that over. So this is, for all intents and purposes, a fully functional video game animation. One thing I want to mention is that for every single one of these keys, for the feet, I use the sliding key, which I prefer to planted. I think I already mentioned this earlier in the video, but planted key makes the feet really stick to the ground, and when setting keys like across an animation, they start behaving a little bit weird. I recommend just using sliding key. I think the benefit to using planted key is that you don't have to do this. In fact, let's test out that theory. If I set a planted key there, and I set a planted key there, nope. Okay, so that doesn't actually fix it. So the difference between planted key and sliding key is minor, and it's only ever going to come up if you're trying to switch between the two mid-animation. Personally, I just use almost exclusively sliding keys, unless, like if a character jumps and you need to animate things in midair, you want to use free keys because that way the feet will follow the rest of the body. But yeah, that's animating in 3ds Max. I hope that was useful, and if it was only partially useful because I wasn't super clear on some things, feel free to ask on the internet below, and let me know if there's anything that I could be more clear about, anything that I could clarify, maybe make another video about. So thanks for watching, and good luck animating. Take care.